This is the news for Yooz.
Hello and welcome to the News for Yooz World Protest Special. I'm your host, Wayne Darnell. The headlines. En France, anti-medical apartheid, freedom-loving protesters take to the streets. UK government of occupation propaganda outlet, the BBC, heroically report on anti-medical apartheid freedom-loving protests taking place across France. In Greece, the streets of Athens crowded with anti-medical apartheid freedom-loving protesters. The BBC investigates as thousands of anti-medical apartheid freedom-loving Greeks protest. In Ireland, Dublin streets packed with anti-medical apartheid freedom-loving Irish protesters. BBC journalists report as anti-medical apartheid freedom-loving Irish protest in the streets of Dublin. French dictator Emmanuel Macron failed to see the irony as his Bastille Day parade was booed. Hundreds of thousands of Parisians took to the streets yesterday to protest the French government of occupation's sweeping new draconian COVID measures. Throughout the day and into the night, protests erupted across France. In Greece, thousands also took to the streets in Athens yesterday in protest against the mandatory vaccinations for health workers and the segregation of vaccinated and non-vaccinated people. To Ireland next, where an estimated crowd of at least 5,000 people surrounded the Irish government at the conference centre in Dublin. The government were about to pass legislation that would bar non-vaccinated people from restaurants and pubs.
The crowd is massive at the minute, and there's literally carloads and busloads of people pulling up. I think there was a busload of fucking people from Dundalk, Drogheda, Donegal there. People parking their cars from Monaghan, from everywhere. So that crowd's going to get bigger, a lot bigger, very, very quickly. You can see up here where I'm coming around the other side now. The guards are where, let me see. The guards are there, so the guards have all the roads blocked off. You can't get near the centre, but where they are now at the back at the car park, is where the politicians' cards are obviously going to be coming in and out. But they ain't getting out. They ain't getting out for a while yet, let me tell you.
We'll be right back after these words.
It's great to see more and more people getting out and protesting and finding their voices and coming together to fight against the government, lockdowns and the taking away of our basic fundamental rights. And there was a time when people were increasingly drifting apart, and as a young worker I can remember those times happening because I used to work in industry and trade unionised organising, labour, and it was really the kind of end of that world where people were organised, they watched each other's backs at their work, and it was all for one and one for all, you know. So I was always aware of the kind of power of collectivism as well as individualism, but throughout the 1980s that kind of dispersed and people were more wanting to be individuals and do their own thing, and the old ways were breaking down, the old industries were largely disappearing. So that kind of way of life of community and collectivism really started to go out of vogue. It was part of history. Now, if you took it in the years, maybe the 1960s, 70s, 80s, it's absolutely unimaginable, it really is, that a government could do that to the people, because if they'd even dared to try, you would have a union leader having 2 million workers out in the street, drop of a hat, you know what I mean? They just wouldn't have it, people wouldn't wear it. So there was checks and balances in the country, there was different powers in different places, but over the years those different powers, independent powers, powers that were in the people's hands have really kind of disappeared, and we've outsourced those powers to other people on our behalf. They've promised us this, they've promised us that, right? But none of them stood for election at the last election and promised they were going to lock us up and start wanting to fill us up with all sorts of chemicals and you couldn't work, none of that stuff. It's good to see people coming together to challenge that. But what I would say, individually, we are not strong. We are not strong as individuals. But when we come together and we're organised and we take action together, we become much stronger, even stronger than some of our parts. And that's important because those people who are doing what they're doing to us, they see the weakness and they see the disunity and they prey upon it, and there's nothing they like more than putting one set of society against the other. You know, they're always pitching this group against that group, somebody's at somebody's throat, somebody's all the time, because they know full well if we're all fighting with each other, we're not looking at them, right? And there's people who just kind of go along with it, and that's what's happened. But if we come together, that's it. We're a powerful force again. We can challenge these people genuinely. It's coming the time we've got to step on a few toes here, you know.
Welcome back. In other news, Cubans have taken to the streets to protest against decades of communist dictatorship. Across the US of A, demonstrators came out in support. President Biden had this to say about the situation.
Okay, hang on. Sorry. Oh, So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway.
And finally, New Zealand Tin Pot dictator Jacinda Ardern instructed her people only to believe what she says. Making her proclamation from the Ministry of Truth, wannabe deity Ardern declared herself, her government and her medical cabal the sole source of honesty, truth and wisdom in a desperate announcement as New Zealanders wake up and the net begins to tighten.
We will continue to be your single source of truth. You can trust us as a source of that information. You can also trust the Director General of Health and the Ministry of Health. For that information, do feel free to visit at any time to clarify any rumour you may hear, covid19.govt.nz. Otherwise, dismiss anything else. We will continue to be your single source of truth. We will provide information frequently. We will share everything we can, everything else you see, a grain of salt.
That's all for now. Join us next time. Goodbye.